to play. Warriors, come out to play. Warriors, come out to play. Warriors, come out to play.
All right, so tonight is semifinals for the Mercstar Invitational between Imperial and 228th Black Watch. This is going to be a very good match. I think a lot of people have been looking forward to this one. I am the Magician, and I am joined by Wonka.
Hello.
All right, so these teams, they've been around a long time, and at least with Imperial, they've been around now over a year, I believe, year and a half, maybe even 2 years total. Like, really not sure. But 228th Black Watch also been around a long time. These two teams have played each other plenty of times, so they're really familiar with each other. What are you expecting out of this match?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's possible, but EmP has been getting better the more and more they play together. I've been really impressed with how clean they've been able to do things, their maneuvers, their plans. I mean, they're putting in a lot of work, and it's showing. And 228th on the flip side, they're unpredictable. I mean, for the most part, you don't have any clue what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. The only thing you know for sure is that it'll be executed well. So I think it'll be really, really interesting to see, especially in some of the lighter drops, how 228th might choose to play this, and how EmP is going to come out to deal with it.
Yeah, I think the first drop is going to be a Mining Collective. I think this is where, if 228th wants to win this match, I think it's really important for them to win this drop, because it is more the toss-up drop, right?
Yeah, you can't, I mean, going against EmP, you'd have to put 228 as the underdog. I mean, no disrespect to 228th meant, but I mean, if they can snipe off drop one, then that can put them in a really, really good position to upset EmP. Definitely, drop one is where I think EmP might be the weakest. We've seen a lot of things from them out of drop one. I remember against us, they actually surprised us because we didn't anticipate that they would bring streaks, and they brought a mix of streaks and serms to our match. So I think that 228 probably won't have a good idea what they're going to do here. And being Mining Collective, with EmP having the team one side, which is the good high side, I think it'll be really interesting to see if they try to pull some crazy CSJ stuff and hop up high and play the range, or really what they choose to do here.
Yeah, so one of the things about this tournament is that it is light drops, really the first three drops. And being a best of 5, you could win this just winning the lighter tonnage drops, where you might only get a couple assaults in at most. And I think that's something 228th might try to do. I mean, obviously they're trying to win every single drop, but
right.
I think they might really put some focus in on these first 3. Like, let's get them down before we get to some of those heavier tonnages, because they have good light players. They have good medium players. They're really good at those kind of scrappy fights, I think. I think they're, obviously a really solid team, but personally, I just think that's their best chance to win, is to get at least 2 drop victories in the first 3.
Yeah, if you can end it before you start seeing Proton and a Mauler, I think you'll be much better served. And there's not, although the interesting thing is drop 2 is a lighter drop, does have 2 assaults, so that's just something to keep in mind. I think it's actually interesting how you throw in two assaults in drop 2, and you think of these drops as like a progression moving up, but with the mandated assaults in drop 2, it actually plays like a little bit heavier drop than drop 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of their past drops, and it's interesting to see, the players they're using, types of mechs they're using, and they're definitely been going with those maulers. And one thing I was noticing was on that second drop, they'll bring out those couple maulers on a lot of those. But then in those cases, the maulers often aren't actually putting out a lot of damage. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. And that's something I felt as well. So I wonder if maybe they'll ditch go in those really high, heavy tonnage assaults in that second drop where it's a tonnage based, and switch instead to something else. But obviously Proton and Twinkie, they're playing maulers all the times in opens. They're really experienced, really good shots with them. So maybe they'll just stick with those.
I think their team structure is one where there's not really. I mean, there's not really a major drop deck builder necessarily, so they kind of build them with a sort of a team effort there. So, and I know they have a lot of their players that are really specific about certain mechs, so I think you really can't discount that. I would agree with you that it plays really well to their play style if they were to go more aggressive, heavy and mediums instead of min maxing it with assaults and lights. To have a lot of very maneuverable heavies and mediums would play more towards their aggressive positioning, movements, and play style. But you just never know what the players are going to want, what they're going to ask for and request in the drops.
So, and this plays into the first drop. One of the things I found really interesting was how little damage lights are often doing right now in this tournament, especially on those first few drops. And I think the reason is because, unlike, say, MRBC's first drop with a bunch of lights, you can take streaks here. And streaks are the big anti-light. So, I mean, if you can just limit those light mechs to 200 or less damage, now you're making the other team rely more on their mediums and heavies if they're taking those. So, I don't know. I also think, though, and it came to mind today, was that Conquest is playing a part in that. Now that teams have to worry more about caps, the lights are spending so much more time away from the fight, just trying to cap instead of actually shooting people. Whereas in the past, under Skirmish, lights were in the faces of mechs constantly. They'll get 200 meters in front of a mech and just jump over little hills and poke them to make them not feel very comfortable no matter where they're at.
Yeah, I think that the way that the comp is settled around the MSI rules is we don't see a lot of like cap play necessarily, but we see the caps play a role. And I think that's really working as it's intended to. That is, the games can't be stagnant that long because one team is going to have to just give up and say, if we just sit here, we're going to lose on caps. So you're right. You've got to have your lights going and being aware of those caps, and oftentimes the lights are used for that position. But once they stabilize, we start to see a lot of games. We've had a couple like on Caustic Valley, for example, our match on Caustic, where once the caps stabilize, or at least you've got what you want, then you can start pulling the lights in and start harassing and doing those things as well. Really, where it just doesn't play a role is if it's a quick brawl at the beginning where one team just doesn't even look at the lights, and we see that a lot in Drop 1.
Yeah, in the past, it was lights were sometimes the highest damage mechs in the game. I mean, they were that good. And with Oxides also. I mean, right now, we know Oxides are great, but you can't take Oxides here.
Though.
Can't be here. So that's the real big damage doer right now for lights. But I was just surprised looking at it that lights are doing about 100 damage less on average than mediums and heavies, and about half the damage that assaults are doing.
Yeah, I mean that has to be from caps. It really does, and the use of streaks in these early drops. I mean, because you can have a lot of streaks on the field, and that means lights have to play a lot more careful and conservative. They have to pick their flanks, make sure they don't run into a mad dog. But when I won, you gave away the MC for our match versus Antares and Marine Mechs, and I told my team, I said I was going to give away the MC. I was just going to look at the scores. I told them it was a team victory, that I was just going to look at the scores and give away the MC to whoever the top four highest damage dealers were. And Terse, good old Terse, who already won his MC, said, you have us out capping, right? and so, I was like, oh man, you're right, absolutely. It's like that's not a good standard to go by. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. The lights are being asked to do things and control the game, but I think it's very healthy, though, don't you? I think the way they're controlling the game is a very healthy thing.
I think that it adds something for lights to be doing that. And it's a different player role than a lot of them are used to. You have hotshot players playing lights, and they're used to constantly shooting and getting in light 1v1 fights, which they still are sometimes on round caps, but they're used to a lot more damage than they're doing now. And I remember even back when we used to have some of our best players in Jenners. But then we were finding that, they're not really doing as much damage as lights used to. They're not, because we started having Highlanders and such, and they were just, it's like, and those players didn't really want to sit in the Jenners anymore. They're like, we're really good shooters. We want to get a mech that's going to do more damage, and they all kind of moved towards the Highlanders.
Well, yeah, we lately our team has been doing that as well. We had a few pilots who might prefer to run lights, and we have situations where sometimes they just might not be the best fit for that role, even though they probably are one of the better light pilots. They could be, they could help more taking the role of a heavy or something else. So, I mean, we've seen that for a little while where, I mean, it seems like when we first got into this in the MRBC season, when we were in Div A, when we were playing you guys for the first time, it seems like lights had a much larger role for damage than is happening lately. I think it'll be interesting to see if that comes back in the current season of MRBC. I think we're starting to see that a lot with the Oxides because of the ban of streaks in Drop 1. So I think the rules of the leagues really dictate the value of the lights there.
All right, so we're about to get started here on Mining Collective at 525 tons. Lights, mediums, maybe some heavies. We've seen people take Mad Dogs, mostly with the streaks. It was when we fought in our last match there. I mean, you guys took a lot of streaks.
Begrudgingly.
We were like, how many streak mechs did they take? 2 Mad Dogs, 2 Streak Crows, 2 Streak Adders. They're like, okay, that's why our lights just went poop.
As many as we possibly could. And the main reason why is we were just trying to keep it fresh.
So I got to ask you, did our ECM cause problems? Because that's one thing
Not one bit. We had like
really?
14 BAPs.
Damn it. Because I was wondering, like, is that going to be a fight here, maybe between Streaks and ECM? But all right, these teams are launching in.
We saw that Griffin 2-in coming around the corner, and it was just like a pop, pop, pop. No problems whatsoever.
So this is going to be drop number 1 between Imperial and 228th.
I'm going to be looking first to see what Imperial's mech choices are. I'm really interested to see if we could see a long-distance range engagement and how 228 will choose to play that at this very light drop. I still want to actually see that. And if you're ever going to see it, I think this is the map.
Yeah, I've seen teams like trying to play a little more range here. I mean, it's not impossible to do. It's certainly a big open map, a lot of high spots that you can hide from SRMs.
All right, so looking at EMP, we got Arctic Cheetahs, Jenner IIC, Firestarter A, Griffin 2-in, 1X Nova, Firestarter K, Stormco, Blackjack, Stormco, Griffin. So there is no range engagement out of EMP for sure.
Yeah, and from the other side, we're seeing Hunchback 2Cs, Blackjacks, Enforcers. So we might see a little more.
We do. We got the Hunchback 2Cs with jump jets, and we got quick draws and grasshoppers. So
yeah, so they're going to try to sit back here. Now the question is, can they get spread out quick enough that to make it so that EMP doesn't have an obvious spot to just push in on?
Well, this is a really rough map to do this on, but I guarantee you, if anybody did their homework, it's 228. It'll be interesting to see how EMP responds. They've got their group sitting back by Theta. They're going to realize very quickly, with all the blue lasers shooting down their UAVs, that something is going on here. So it'll be interesting to see how they choose to play it.
All right, so now with those ER large, they might be able to control the cap. So they got to light up on Theta. And they just barely got it over a sliver, but that might be enough to make the other team not be able to actually even turn it to neutral. If they could
even though they got Theta, EMP did have the quick 2 cap on Gamma Kappa. So EMP actually has the cap lead at this point, even though 228 does have Theta. But you wonder if 228 is too worried to send lights off to cap their side points because they're worried about a push coming. No, they haven't decapped it.
So Heimdallite is red on exterior armor. He was poking up there on the ramp, but he took enough shots there. He's already red CT. Now it's not into the interior structure, so not a huge deal, but EMP is now pushing around the right side. It looks like they decided enough of those ER large, and they want to move forward.
Yeah, that's the same movement you guys made on us, and it's the movement. It's probably the best movement they have to brawl push into a firing line.
So now 228 has to back off, though, right? I mean, they're sitting back here, D5.
These guys in Upper City, they're lights, though, mostly. They got their cheetahs. They got a few hunchies there, but hunchies and quick draws are the most mobile things they have. They have the Blackjack and Enforcer 4R overwatching. So, yeah, they're rotating out of that really quick. EMP didn't get on them fast enough. So
what are we looking to see 228 do? Do you think they need to get 2 kills before EMP really gets SRMs on mechs? Or do you feel like they just got to get a bunch of mechs down to maybe the 80s, 70s%?
Yeah, I think to win this, they just have to wreck EMP and make them feel unconfident in what they can do. The longer EMP delays this push, the more likely that 228 is going to be able to pull off something. But the interesting thing here is I spoke about how this was the bad side to play this move, but EMP's rotation has basically just given 228 the good side. which is really interesting to see if they decide to take advantage of
Oh,
these little.
jeez. Celis is way ahead. He took a little bit of damage there. I mean, they are really spread out, EmP, across this whole entire E-line, D line. They are just spread out. And that's forcing 228 a little bit spread out, but now they are grouping back up for the ER. You're right. Now they've gotten, that pillar area, that upper area, a lot of visibility here. They got 2 mechs down in the 80s. That's pretty good. I mean, they got to be pretty happy about that.
I think they really need to get some X up on this. If you look at the little 3 steps there, on the left side, right behind the Krisman and Edmeister, I think they really need to get some high mechs up there to stabilize this position a little bit better. They have a lot of guys sitting up around Theta, so it's pretty obvious that 228 wants to control Theta. They now have the cap advantage. They're still behind in caps, but it's going to tick over to their favor probably here in about a minute.
2 lights are trying to harass this medium up here. Now 3 lights are joining from EmP, but they are getting hit by another light, and they might get this first kill on this medium, though.
Yeah, well, they got this enforcer in trouble over here.
Oh, they are all pushing this side now.
Yeah, they're gonna roll this weak flank right here, and if they don't get out of there, I think they legged the enforcer, so he's gonna be going.
Well, that's okay. That cheetah though, that Dr. Killer needs to get out of there. He can't just join and sacrifice himself because the rest of these guys are really ready for this push. Like they're in perfect position.
Legged. I think he might just be trying to cover that enforcer, which is probably not the wisest course there.
Yeah, he is legged at this time.
Okay, so he's just hanging down. Unfortunately, I don't think 228 was able to come together enough on that, and it'll be interesting. Although Selith is getting wrecked, they're already down 2 mechs.
Well, South is just down to 30%, and it's a 1 kill, and then you have the cheetah who is legged. So they should have free reign on that. Now, EmP is closing the gap here. South is taking his damage. He is going to probably go down here any moment, but they might even leave him off if he's mostly stripped. But they do get Proton down really quick there, that fire starter, actually. They'll streak. I once had some streaks just hanging around.
They're starting to fall a little bit. We got 2 kills now, so it's 2-2.
2-2, but percentages are not really high for either team at this point, and Yara Large is going to have a harder time as it goes on with lower percentages.
Although, these quick draws up top here, they have taken the high position now, so it'll be interesting to see how EmP is able to play out of that.
Yeah, now EmP is playing really close there. They're getting some SRMs jumping up, and they're doing some damage.
2 quick for EmP, so it's...
Oh, 2 quick down 228.
Just as I said that, there's 2 quick on 228. It's 6-4, 5-6 at this moment in time.
Yeah, they have enough fresh mechs of these lights, but...
EmP just took another one. It's 6-all.
Gosh, this is going really close. It's percentages, I say, in our favor, EmP, but the question is, what mechs do they have live? How many streaks do they have alive against the lights? A lot of situations here. That light is definitely harassing the Grasshopper, though.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the range mechs, I mean, they're really mixing it up right now, and you got to think that favors EmP because of their brawl loadouts. You see Edmeister, for example, he's alive in a Grasshopper, but he's got 3 blue guys on him.
Yeah, so, at this point, I'm really liking EmP's position. They got the mechs. They're doing a lot of harassment. They have 2...
Yeah, it's going to go their way. There's 2 mechs left.
Yeah, there's 3 mechs now remaining, so it's going to go in favor of EmP to take the first drop in a very interesting fight. Completely different styles of play.
Well, I'm glad we saw that. I think that 228 just got their heels nipped a little too much. I think it probably started to snowball when they lost the cheetah and the enforcer on the flank there. That might have been a failure in scouting, or they might have made the decision that they weren't going to be able to out-rotate that, but that definitely hurt them.
Now, the caps are 481 to 422, but that cheetah's legs, so it's not like he can actually do anything about it.
No, they're all dead. They have to turn them off to win, though.
Oh, it's showing me 1 cheetah still alive on the scoreboard.
No, it showed me all dead.
Okay. Well, that's just a little bug. No big deal. So now it hits the 750, and...
Yeah, they had to decap all the red caps so that the red team didn't technically have a way of winning.
All right, well played by them. Looking at the damage there, Rick Rom with 421 damage in the Griffins. He was able to get close. You saw Selth was damaged early on, but it was really all over his body, all over the mechs. It was only, still it's able to do 146 damage. The quick death from Proton and that Firestarter K, 67 damage. But otherwise, they're all up in those 3, a lot in the 3s. So that's a really nice job. Esmeister did a great job on that Grasshopper, 459.
Yeah, he did. And he was one of the last mechs alive, and he was able to do what, the Grasshopper's a really interesting mech there because we thought we were sacrificing a lot to bring the 60-ton Mad Dog, but you're going to turn around and bring a Grasshopper that's even more than that. That's actually a pretty interesting sacrifice for that, I think.
All right, so the next drop, I mean, just in case these guys go quick, it would be a 4-4-2-2 on River City. So it is still going to be a really light drop, but it does start off with some assaults and some heavies.
Yeah, you have a slower team speed with the assaults, but you have the 4 mediums and 4 lights, which really can shake things up quite a bit. I think EmP tends to favor, their particular mechs that they like more than maybe trying to have like an overall blue laser strategy. They might decide to really get really aggressive with mid-range. I think that I would expect that out of them. And with 228, to be honest with you, we could expect whatever they do, it's going to be in sync. We could expect a range blue laser fight here, or they could just smash mouth right across the park, right into their faces. It'll be interesting to see what they choose to do. EmP will have the side that you guys dropped on River City, so that means they'll have the landing strip area.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people think that is the better side. It doesn't. I don't think it has the open lanes of Theta. Like I think it's easier from the other side to take Theta, but it does have cover maybe more in the mid game and late game from that higher position to perhaps control Theta as the match develops.
Well, we decided not to take Theta immediately on this map, primarily because we didn't want to gamble away something. We didn't want your first movements to be hard at Theta and then to get some of our lights in a bad position to start the match. So we sort of were waiting for things to stabilize before we decided what to do with that. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how these teams decide to play that. Remember, we have new conquest rules, and what that means is any scratch damage delays the cap for 5 seconds. So you can actually control Theta without actually having a light on it or having something on it. You can prevent it from flipping.
Yeah, so I'm watching the fight here on the replay, and you see a couple lights from 228 getting caught.
I mean, it's
like they were on the part where they were pushing through, and I think that is a problem. Those lights should have been farther back at that point, not trying to support any teammates that are taking damage. You just kind of have to give them up and just be like, those are sunken costs, move on, and make sure you're staying alive and not taking unnecessary damage.
Interesting thing that Seleth pointed out is that they are playing these matches without Audi and Ara, and that's 2 of their better light pilots. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects them as this goes on. They have a lot of good light pilots, though, so I'm not sure that how much that's going to.
I don't know how much it's going to have an impact as it develops, because you'll have less lights. Let's drop 4 lights. They've already shown that those lights can play those mechs, but there are maybe perhaps people in those that aren't used to it, so that does. It kind of changes things a little bit, but
although as I say that, I may see one of those people in the lobby at this point, which I guess that's not a big secret since 228 can see it. I do see Ara back in the lobby, so I'm sure EmP will be happy to have that.
And it's really this point in this fight in the replay where there wasn't much that 228 could do. I mean, you can't really kite with the ER large at this point against those speed of mechs. So
I don't see a replay on stream, so I don't know if it was delayed.
No, it's still you're still watching the original on the stream.
No, it's over. It's over. It's on the screen, I think.
Okay, well the replay will come up in a little bit then, but you won't see the replay because you're 5 minutes watching delayed when you're watching the stream.
Yeah, of course.
So. But it was the part where they're up there and they'd already closed the distance. So
I think I'm locked anyway. I think it's glitched. I'm just going to refresh.
Okay.
Yeah, I was glitched. It wasn't showing. And I see what you were seeing now. I thought you were lying about that cheetah being alive, but turns out you weren't lying. So
yeah, the funny thing is I saw him die. Like I saw him die, but I was moving the camera at that point or getting ready to move the camera, so I didn't my eyes didn't really recognize that was what was happening.
Well, I asked for it. I said I wanted to see what would happen if we had a range with this really light deck. I just never dreamed that 228 would flip that switch, to be honest, from that side.
Okay, so now 228, they try to play that range style in that first drop and moving into River City with still a lot of lightweight stuff, but you get that, talking about the heavies and assaults. Do you think they're going to try to play a range ER large here again, or do you think that they might decide that they're going to go for more of a push strat?
I think that we don't have a clue, and I think that's exactly how 228 wants it. I think that if I was the other drop commander, I could not be sitting around trying to think about what 228 is likely to do. I would just have to play what I feel is my best game, because the reality is that they don't have a clue. They don't have a flipping clue what 228 is going to do here, and we don't either. I mean, really, they could do anything, and we would not be surprised by it at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that you can do in these matches by going with certain strats in that first couple drops. Is you can make your opponent not really sure what you're going to try doing. Sometimes I know I'll take a ranged deck when maybe I prefer to brawl, just so that my opponent later on, deeper in the match, isn't just predicting exactly what we're going to go with.
Yeah, I went through a phase where I was trying to do that, guess what was going to happen, and it got me in trouble more than it helped me. And therefore the team suffered from that, obviously. So I decided a long time ago that it's okay to think about strategy and scout the team, try to figure out what they're going to do, but at some point in time you have to stop the what about this, that, and the other thing, and then this. I mean, you have to stop at some point, because the bottom line is paper still beats rock, and you've got to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, but I think it's more of when you're not really sure. Like, okay, let's take Caustic for an example. That's not right now. We'll come up in the next drop, but or 2 drops from now. But it's one of those maps where people play it both ways. So if you're known as a range team, maybe then you go brawl, because you feel like it's about even either way. So we're gonna go brawl, because then they might not be expecting it. They might not be even set up for it.
Yeah. And that's the trouble with this next drop, is that 228, we don't really know what they're going to do. So I think EmP will go back to their standard strengths. I think we'll see Maulers on the field, likely. I think that we'll see maybe Black Knights or Timberwolves or Hellbringers or Quick Draws, depending on how they decide to allot their clan and IS mechs. I just think we'll see a lot of tried and true mechs, and some really good aggressive positioning by EmP is likely to occur here. Every time I've seen them play River City, they drop the rope around the neck and slowly tighten it up until there is nowhere left to go.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Atlases from EmP either.
No, I absolutely. You're right. That would be completely something that they could try to do. But I would be shocked if the entire team was brawl. That would shock me.
Okay, so we are seeing a little bit of extra weight there from EmP, 30 extra tons, unless there's changes made.
Yeah, they're all green.
That does
30 extra tons makes you think that there's direwolves on the field, or atlases on the field, or something very heavy.
Yeah, it's possible though. It's possible though that 28th is just going a little bit lighter with more like the stalkers, quick draws, whereas EmP might be going with Timberwolves, Black Knights.
I have our deck up that we ran, and we were very light, and we were at 640. We had stalkers, grasshoppers, blackjacks, and stormcrows. So we lost some tonnage on the blackjacks, and we lost 15 tons on the stalkers, and so that was at 640. So they are 228 is heavier than that, but as soon as we say that, EmP switches, and they're down to 660 tons.
Maybe they found an issue. Somebody wasn't in the right mech guiding it. One of those things. Because we were running, I think, a bit heavier than you on that drop, and we were still 685, and we only could have added another 15. 20 tons. So you can only be 705 max, I think, on this, if I'm reading it right.
Right. Well, I have to do the math on to figure it out, but I think it's pretty close. But at 660, they're only 20 tons heavier than that tonnage that I mentioned. So I think that might mean, I think that's actually very interesting, because I would think that would favor a lighter drop, because I mean, it would be really hard to bring like 90-ton assaults there, and to meet that tonnage. So I guess it would be possible. I suppose you could have something like executioners there, and I think you could still pull off the maulers and meet that weight. But I would think if you did that you would have a whole lot of 55-ton mediums.
Well, so lights on this drop, I think a lot of teams are going with the clan lights, just because you can only have 2 of in each chassis. You have to have 6 clan, and if your assaults are IS, and if you're going with the Black Knights, already your 4 IS mechs, so you're trying to figure out where you're going to put them, and then you got 4 mediums, so you might as well maybe go 2 IS mediums, 2 clan mediums, especially if you're going to brawl.
We saw them willing to bring the IICs, the Jenners, and so that really eases up the burden on this restriction a lot. Being able to bring the IIC Jenners, because then you can hide 4 of your clan mechs down in the Cheetahs and the IIC Jenners without sacrificing too much.
I think the IIC Hunchbacks are another thing where it's changing things a little bit. They're a really good medium mech. They're very versatile. If you see it until you really know what it is, what kind of variant or something, you're not really sure what they're taking. They could be going Brawl. They could be going perhaps ACs. They could be going Gauss. I mean, ER large bulls.
When you see them, you know that they're probably mid-range or higher. I think that probably Stormcrow still win the day on the Brawl side of things.
Yeah, it just depends, again, how they want to lot the IS versus clan mechs.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's another place where you can actually dump that.
So this drop, now, with Conquest, it's one of those things that can trip you up a little bit. Like, how much are you going to cap and how much are you going to fight? How much are you going to try to get caps to get up, but then you want to make sure that you're not leaving yourself open as well at the same time.
Yeah, I think the more aggressive that a team wants to be, and that doesn't necessarily mean brawl. I mean, if a team is planning on brawling, then obviously they're not going to worry too much about the caps. But if they are planning on being really aggressive with mid-range and taking aggressive positions and really moving in on them, then you don't really have to play the caps too much at that point.
Yeah, sometimes you could if you just don't cap, like you can say, hey, come at, we're not playing the Conquest game. I wonder if they can play little head games with your opponent. Because right then they're saying, okay, they didn't cap, which means they're going to get aggressive, which means, okay, we got to get really set up in case they're going to push on us, because they got to push because they're not capping. And at that point, maybe you could even play slow play. You could play little head games.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I mean, based on how quickly, I'm looking for things like what caps are turning, how quickly are those caps turning, and I'm trying to use that as an indication of what's going on the field. So yeah, absolutely. Final tonnage, we've arrived at 680 and 660, and it looks like everybody is green.
So I'm look at the spawns real quick before we get in there. They are, there's some problems on Smurf. You have to make sure. Okay, so Alpha is on the top, so they are spawning probably their salt mechs up top.
We have our own internal maps we look at now because Smurfy was wrong so many times.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where EmP was parking their light mechs, and I didn't have the right maps. I just gave up. I wasn't going to trust Smurfy at that point. I believe they had them in their Bravo side, and they were on Team 1 side, Bravo, which gives them Upper City. I believe Bravo's right in the middle, I want to say, but I could be way off.
Well, River City, otherwise known as a map that takes forever and a day to load. All right, so the teams got it correct with the map. They actually did press day this time. We're not going to have redrops or other types of situations.
Well, I don't be fair. They could have just gotten lucky with random, so let's be fair.
All right, so drop number 2 between Imperial and 228th. Imperial took the first drop. 228th looking to even it up.
And that's what I was expecting from EmP. We got 2 Maulers, we got 2 Jenner IICs, 2 Black Knights. We have Enforcers, a Stormcrow, Hunchback IICs, a Blackjack 1X. It looks like they have a very sort of aggressive, mid-rangeist 400 to 500 meter kind of deck. Probably expect to see Maulers sitting back in fire positions, probably overwatching high if they can get away with it.
Yeah, so on the other side there, you got Grasshoppers and Forcers, much more of a range deck. They're going to have to really get out that damage. And Executioners are an interesting option there because that is more of like a push assault. You might be playing ER large on that. I'm going to try to find one here.
They really like Gauss Meads on that. I've seen 2 large Pulse 3 Meads, but 228 is a fan of the Executioner. Right. But we do see, we look like that we're getting set up for a sort of a range off. But depending on what 228 decided to bring on those Grasshoppers, I think they're in a better position to win this simply because of that.
Yes, EmP does have a 3-2 at cap advantage. So if 228 is going to play that ER large, they're going to have to figure out how to at least neutralize or capture another
Well, I
base.
think the best thing they can do is back cap them here. EMP's leaving their back cap on their left flank completely open. They have lights watching it, maybe they could respond to it, but I think that 228 is going to have to pressure that. Also, another thing is EMP took Theta, but if you look Overwatch on Theta, the mechs from the high side and the upper city, they don't really control that very well. So 228 could at any point want to just hop down and take Theta with force if they want it. And look at this. Look at EMP's mediums getting in really aggressive position. There's the Hunchy and the Blackjack doing exactly what they need to do, and they're flushing. They're actually flushing 228 out of the upper city area, which I think is going to be bad for the Grasshoppers, to be honest.
Yeah, they're going to have to then rotate over, probably take Citadel if they can, but EMP has lights there, kind of just waiting on them as well.
I think it'll be interesting to see how 228 decides to fight from this area. I don't know how you feel about this particular position, but I hate fighting from it.
I think with ER large against ACs, you're asking for some problems, a little bit tied up, vulnerable to streaks, hard to actually focus fire on any mech because you're all getting blocked either by each other or by buildings. And you can't just open the fight very easily, so they are going to push across towards Citadel, and this is going to be a dangerous move. They're going to take a lot of damage if they're not playing it right. Okay, they're only sending 3 or 4 of those mechs over there, but now one is out in the water, another drops out in the water. Not really quick.
Executioner's down.
Yeah, it's just
he's not dropped. He's in the water.
It's just too much. I think this is a weird, awkward drop. You got some people going left towards Theta, some people behind Citadel. It doesn't look very coordinated. Mechs are easy for EMP to target down because they were just wide out there in the water on their own. It wasn't like everybody pushed out in the water at the same time. Now you have 3 sitting here by Theta. They're just going to get annihilated if EMP puts any pressure on them.
It's great. It's the 3 mechs you don't want there too. The Grasshoppers and Executioners. They shouldn't be fighting there.
I don't know why they didn't go behind and then jump up maybe on Citadel.
One thing they're doing is 228 is moving out of it a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see if they can come back from all the damage they took. It doesn't look like it, but the problem with the position they were in before is they created the spot where EMP only had to look at one place to get their shots and to see where they were shooting from. It was like 228 had to fire from one little corridor. And they haven't fixed it until right at this minute in time. They have some mechs up in the upper city getting shots. But again, they're balling up in the rocks, probably because of how hurt they are. And all that's doing is letting EMP see them better. They don't have to look left and right for shots and flank shots coming.
Yeah, this is really not what they wanted to be. And you see that Grasshopper or Executioner does go down because they lost their position, which was a good position, because they got chased out by mediums. They probably should just have pulled back and took that, because now they gave EMP that position, and if you just look at where EMP is right now, definitely favorable.
They're dropping. The percentages are falling way too fast. 228 doesn't have a solid position. They don't have the cap lead. This is not going to end well. It's just going to you're going to see a lot of dead here in about 15-20 seconds, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately for 228, there's nothing really that they can do at this point. Mechs are all hurt, and they're facing really fresh mechs throughout. So nothing but pretty much just to die here. They can't even try to cap because while they have the lights and they didn't try it early enough. Maybe that was something they could have tried doing, was getting a couple more caps and really putting pressure in the late part of the stages, but isn't going to happen.
EMP played it really, really clean. They sent the mediums to the upper city, and they backed them up with fire support. The mediums were able to scare away any semblance of a firing line that 228 was going to have. And I think for them I think they gave that away way too early. I think they needed to hold that.
Yep, I agree.
They just didn't have anywhere to go. They didn't have anywhere to rotate.
And if they were going to rotate, they shouldn't have rotated so close. They should have maybe all the way back here in this island, the island district, the buildings, whatever you want to call it, the shipyard, other shipyard. They should have maybe rotated all the way back here because they had the range to do that. Instead, they had some of their heavies going up towards Theta, which is not where they wanted to be.
You're right. That's a weird rotation, but it would have been better than trying to maintaining that position. I think the key is once they got down past Rock Garden and they got into that little area on the shore, if you look at that, if you actually look at what it looks and feels like, they all have to look over each other's heads to shoot upper city, which is where the majority of EMP was, and they were all shooting them through one little corridor. And when you're setting up mid-range trading and you're trying to attack the enemy, you want to concave, you want to turn their heads. You want him looking left, right, up, and down. You want him not knowing where the next shot's coming from, and that just wasn't the line that 228 had.
All right, so
So
EMP's
wh-
taking
wh-
a big lead here.